If you've been struggling with pain for weeks, months, or years, the worst thing you can do is to continue to move less. When we feel pain, our instincts often tell us to quit moving, to protect that vulnerable area of the body. And while this protective response is sometimes necessary for a short time, especially after a new acute injury like rolling your ankle, a harmful pattern emerges when we continue to move less and less. The body becomes more sensitive, amplifying the pain signals, and then simultaneously that protected area grows weaker, progressively limiting your ability to do the things that you want to do. This experience is incredibly common and is known as the pain and disability cycle. In this cycle, pain leads to reduced movement, which causes physical deconditioning and increased sensitivity. This makes even simple activities more difficult and painful, which reinforces the tendency to move less, creating a self-perpetuating loop that progressively worsens over time. The good news is this cycle is one that you can get out of, and the feeling of being stuck is reversible. The path to feeling better isn't through prolonged rest, but through strategic and consistent movement, often starting with gentle movements. So what's the better option than rest? Well, it's finding what you can do and starting to do a little bit more each week. This approach is an evidence-based strategy grounded in a deep understanding of how pain, especially chronic pain, actually works. When pain persists for months, it fundamentally transforms from a simple protective signal of tissue damage into a complex self-perpetuating problem within the nervous system itself. To understand why this solution is so effective, we first need to understand the two interconnected problems that prolonged rest creates: the sensitive body and the weaker body. And the way I like to think about this is as a two-headed dragon, and it really breaks down into two parts. Inactivity is a powerful driver of chronic pain precisely because it simultaneously attacks both the body's software, the nervous system, and its hardware, the muscles, the joints, the ligaments, and tendons. So let's examine each head of this dragon. The first one is the oversensitive. Your brain's alarm system gets stuck on high. This hypersensitivity is a real, measurable neurobiological phenomenon called central sensitization. Think of your nervous system as a home alarm. With acute pain, like a new injury, the alarm system sounds when someone breaks a window. It's a helpful, proportionate response to actual tissue damage. However, in a state of chronic pain, this alarm system gets fundamentally rewired to become hypersensitive through a process of maladaptive neuroplasticity. Usually we think of neuroplasticity in a good context, but the brain's ability to learn and reinforce pain pathways is the opposite side of that positive neuroplasticity. The sensitivity knob essentially gets turned up and becomes stuck there. And this isn't in your head, it's a physical change in your nervous system that manifests in two distinct ways. Hyperalgesia, a stimulus that is normally painful, is perceived as even more painful. And allodynia, a stimulus that is normally not painful, like a sweater on your skin or a light touch, is now perceived as pain. This hypersensitive state involves changes in the central nervous system, including alterations in how pain signals are processed and modulated. When you stop moving, your brain never receives new, safe information to challenge this heightened state, so the sensitivity knob stays stuck on high. That's head one of the dragon. The second is the weaker problem, the cycle of fear and deconditioning. While your nervous system is becoming hypersensitive, your physical body is simultaneously getting weaker. And these two processes fuel each other in a devastating feedback loop. This physical deterioration is part of a well-established framework called the fear-avoidance model. And this cycle unfolds like this. You have pain, you experience pain during a movement, say it's bending over, and then we have the catastrophizing. You interpret that pain as a sign of serious damage, because oftentimes we're told that, and we think my back's fragile, that movement is harmful, and then we have the fear. This interpretation that this is harmful leads to a debilitating fear of movement known as kinesiophobia. Then we start to avoid. We logically begin to avoid any movement that we see as risky in order to prevent more pain. And then this leads to disuse and deconditioning. And this is where the critical physical breakdown occurs. The muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, the joints, now systematically unused, become they stiff, weak, and far less resilient. And this creates a decreased load capacity. See, every tissue in your body has a certain threshold for handling physical load. When you stop moving, this capacity rapidly decreases. Now, an everyday task that was once perfectly manageable, like picking up a bag of groceries, suddenly exceeds your body's diminished capacity. And this can trigger a pain flare, which seemingly then confirms your original fear that movement is dangerous. And this vicious cycle repeats. Each painful experience leads to more fear, which then leads to avoiding more activities, creating more deconditioning, and then eventually more pain, then leaving you more sensitive than before. So how do we break the cycle? First, we find what we can do. Now that we understand this two-headed dragon, the hypersensitive nervous system and the deconditioned body, we can see why the solution of finding what you can do and starting to do a little bit more each week is so remarkably effective. This approach doesn't just address one problem, it simultaneously attacks all of these interconnected issues through three powerful mechanisms. The first one is the software fix, which is retraining your brain. At its core, this strategy employs a powerful therapeutic technique known as graded exposure training. It's a software fix for your brain that combines behavioral and physical reconditioning to break that fear avoidance cycle. The process works like this. First, you identify which specific activities or movements you're most afraid of. These are your feared stimuli. Then you gradually expose yourself to these activities in a systematic, controlled way so you can experience firsthand that they're actually safe to perform. The key is shifting from a pain-contingent approach to a time-contingent approach, or quota-based approach. The old approach was, I'll walk until my back hurts. That's the pain-contingent. The time-contingent is, today I'll walk for 5 minutes and stay under that pain threshold. Tomorrow, another 5 minutes, and the day after that, maybe we push to 6. You set specific achievable quotas that start below your pain threshold to ensure success. And these quotas are systematically increased over time until you reach your goal. The critical difference is that you're progressing based on time or repetitions, not on pain levels. This approach provides direct evidence to your brain that the feared movement doesn't cause the catastrophic harm you expected, which is far more powerful than simply being told movement is safe. As you successfully complete each exposure without disaster, you systematically unlearn the fear, reduce that fear of movement, and begin to dial down this stuck sensitivity knob. This isn't just pain relief, it's literally rewiring your nervous system. Mechanism 2 is the hardware fix, rebuilding your body through progressive overload. While you're retraining your brain, you're simultaneously triggering a hardware fix in your physical tissues through the principle of progressive overload. This fundamental concept explains how your body adapts and grows stronger. When you consistently apply a load to your tissues and gradually increase this load, the tissues respond by building greater capacity to handle that stress. A place to start, especially when there's a flare-up or we're in the beginning of care, is with gentle mobility exercises that eventually progress to body weight exercises. The gentle movements early on, right on the back of graded exposure, letting us get comfortable with the movement, and then these movements can be made to be more challenging by changing the tempo of the movement, adding weight to the movement, or even adding instability to the movement. Strength training is the most direct application of progressive overload, and it's typically what we think of. And by systematically challenging your muscles with increasing resistance, again, or changing the tempo, you make them progressively more robust and resilient. And as your tissues build capacity, activities that once exceeded your threshold and triggered pain, like lifting groceries or bending to tie your shoe, now fall comfortably within your capabilities. Strengthening the muscles around a painful area also enhances joint stability and distributes the load away from those sensitive structures. The beauty of progressive overload is that it directly reverses the deconditioning cycle. By starting with manageable loads and then incrementally increasing them each week, you're giving your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments, and joints the precise stimulus they need to rebuild their strength and their resilience, essentially raising your body's load capacity back to functional levels while simultaneously helping to relieve pain. The principle underlying all of this is simple but powerful. Capacity is built through consistent, progressive challenge. Each week's small increase in load provides a stimulus for adaptation, gradually rebuilding your body's ability to handle the demands of daily life without triggering pain. That then leads us into mechanism 3, the chemical fix, activating your internal pharmacy. Perhaps most powerfully, consistent movement unlocks your body's own sophisticated built-in pharmacy, a natural pain-killing system that rivals any medication. This phenomenon is called exercise-induced hypoalgesia, which is the reduction in pain sensitivity that occurs during and after exercise. While this system can be sluggish initially with chronic pain, finding the right entry point, movement, is key to helping turn it back on over time. When you exercise, you trigger a flood of natural painkillers throughout your system. You have endogenous opioids, which exercise stimulates the release of endorphins, the body's natural morphine-like compounds, and these bind to opioid receptors in key pain-modulating brain regions, providing potent natural relief. Even better, regular exercise can upregulate this entire system, making your body progressively better at managing pain around the clock. You also have the endocannabinoid system, and this is the famous one that we think of when runner's high, and it's the molecules your body produces are remarkably similar to the active compound in cannabis. They're released by moderate intensity exercise, and they're exceptionally effective at reducing both pain and anxiety, directly tackling both the sensory and emotional components of the chronic pain cycle. You also have systemic anti-inflammatories that regular aerobic exercise helps to release. It helps cool down the entire nervous system by reducing the pro-inflammatory chemicals that fuel central sensitization and keep that alarm system stuck on high. Chronic pain doesn't have to be a life sentence. Your body is not broken. It's stuck in a highly intelligent but ultimately maladaptive protective loop. The pain is real, the sensitivity is real, and the weakness is real. But equally real is your body's remarkable capacity to change. By starting small and finding what you can do, you're not just moving, you're engaging in a comprehensive therapeutic program that works on every level simultaneously. You're retraining your brain to unlearn fear through graded exposure, the software fix. Rebuilding your body to be stronger and more resilient through progressive overload, the hardware fix. And then you're resetting your chemistry with a cocktail of natural, powerful painkillers, the chemical fix. And this is how you break the cycle. This is how you reclaim your life, one small, deliberate movement at a time. And this is one aspect of the care here at Optimized Chiropractic. So if you're someone that is in chronic pain, there is a way out of it. It's going to take time, it's going to take effort, but you are not stuck and you can get better.